What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Trick 10s. This is the Tracker Grizzly 2072. We're getting ready to install these hatches in here and we're going to be turfing the entire boat. Now, let's talk about it. Obviously, I've got a splint on my hand. I'm not as young as I used to be. As you guys know, if you've been following along, I just moved and I have a lot of stuff. Didn't realize how much stuff I had until I actually started moving. But just a couple days ago, I was moving a shed. I'm not talking about no gigantic, wood shed or a metal shed. This thing is one of those little plastic ones. It wasn't super small. It's 8 foot by 10 foot. It's got a tall ceiling so I can stand up in it, but I'm basically moving it from one house to the next. And I got a whole thing set up, the floor and all the walls. And I had the roof of it. I didn't take it apart. I wanted to be a smart ass and thought that I could pick up the roof by myself and set it down in place. Well, I picked it up. And I felt like an old man. It's like right out of a movie. It's like, oh yeah, my old high school injury from football flared up on me. Well, that's basically what happened to me. I tore the ligament inside of my thumb about 17 years ago when I was playing college basketball. And I honestly had pretty much forgot about it until I tore it again when I picked that shed up. I went to the doctor yesterday and he's like, yeah, this looks like you had already had an injury here and you redid the same thing. It really sucks. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and complain about it, but the bottom line is that I'm going to be in this little splint for a week, and then I might be in a hard cast for 6 weeks, which is going to make it pretty difficult for me to not only install the turf in this boat, but day-to-day life and functions and being a fabricator and a welder. Kind of need my hands for stuff like that. So it's going to be a little bit of a journey and a little bit of a setback, but at least I have my hands, I have my health. Can't complain too much, guys. We just got to make do. It's going to be a lot harder for me to install the turf in this boat now with one good hand. Thankfully, I got Austin here to help me, and we're going to make the best out of a shitty situation. So the first thing we're going to do, though, is we're going to install these hatches. Now, you can see I got the hatches powder coated black. I went and picked these up this morning. They look really good. Also, the foot pedal tray up there on the front deck, that's done. And I got to get that hole cut and get that thing set. So I'm gonna get up there and lay that thing out, and I'm gonna show Austin exactly where I want to put it. And we got to stage it up in the right place. We got the seat base post that goes right behind that. We're gonna move that back a little bit too. Got a little bit of work to do on that before we can actually start turfing the thing. We also have to make our vertical walls to go on here and our top sheet piece. Then we're gonna install all those permanently and the hatches permanently. And then we're gonna start turfing this thing, guys. Wish me luck. It's gonna be a long journey. Let's get back to work. right, so we're almost ready to start turfing this boat. We're just cleaning it up now. Austin's sweeping this thing out. We're gonna vacuum it, wipe it down with some acetone. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, working with this thing on my wrist, it really sucks. I'm trying to stay positive because I'm not really wanting to complain about stuff, but in the same sense, it is a little bit difficult, and it's gonna be really hard for the next couple of weeks at least. I'm hoping that it'll start feeling better soon so I can use it a little bit more, because in my line of business, it's just not an option to take a week or two off. It's not possible right now. But one thing I did remember about these trackers when I started doing some of the cleanup in it is that it has these stupid steel rib nuts in here. And these are like drive nails. They're not rib nuts, they're drive nails. They're down in the floors, in the front deck. I did grind the top of those down just a little bit. That way the turf doesn't stick up so much on top of them. I mean, really, they don't even need them in the front deck. They got a ton of welds around where they're at. I'm gonna show you guys that right now. It's really kind of silly. But look, this is what I'm talking about right here. You see where I ground them all down? Look, there's one right here. There's like a 4-inch weld right next to it. Another one, another 4-inch weld. The whole front up here is completely welded around, yet they still have these steel drive nails in here. This is one of the major flaws besides the shitty foam they put in here for trackers. And it really just blows my mind to why they would want to put steel in the boat to begin with, especially not these type of fasteners with such big heads on them, because they really stick up on top of the deck. And what you see with a lot of the trackers later on down the road is that these will eventually, the paint gets rubbed off of them, and then they start rusting. And then the rust leaks onto the deck, and you always see these long rust streaks on the deck. And that's what happens because they jack the front of the boat up in the air when it's parked, rain hits it, and then it just runs down the back of the boat. It's really ugly. And that is one thing that I really don't like about these boats. But you can see how we did this hole cut out in here for the recessed foot pedal tray. We welded a piece of 1-inch square tubing, and normally we can't do it that way, but since we're putting the shallow pan in here, that thing is about 1.5 inches, and that pan is only 1.5 inches. So that actually worked out really well, and that allows us to connect the existing brace that was already there, so it'll be nice and strong. And we stood up here, and it's not spongy or anything like that. So that definitely worked out good. We did move this base back, and that gives some good spacing up here. So everything looks good. You know, I wish that this was all work that we had done in here. It'd make my job a lot easier for turfing it and make it look a lot better, but it is what it is. We're gonna do the best we can with what we got. And I think the way we're gonna start out is with one sheet. It's gonna come from the floor, up the face, and back up to the front. We'll probably come in piece on either side of that. I think that's gonna be our best bet. And from there, we'll work our way on back and get this whole thing wrapped up. Now we did remove this panel that was on here. I'm gonna set that back on there and then turf over it without putting any screws into it. Then I'm gonna cut around it, remove it, and then the existing holes that are there, there's already holes in the deck where it was screwed in. So the holes that are in this piece that we take off, we'll just be able to pop the screws through them, see where they're at, and it should be able to go back into the same holes. Now he did have these seat bases right here mounted onto there, so probably have to put those back on there too. I don't know. It's gonna be a little bit of work, but there's where the gas tank's at, in case you're wondering what your gas tank looks like inside your 2072. Well, that's what it looks like. It's a nice tank, it's a pretty good size. Unfortunately, just it's kind of a pain in the butt the way the panel is to access it, but it is what it is. Now that we're at this stage of the game, we gotta wipe this down up here, a little bit of vacuuming, then we're gonna start turfing this thing. Let's get back to work. Last piece of the puzzle right here. One little screw. All right, she's all done. I really like this boat. And with the 150 and these pods on here, it's really dope. And with this turf, I mean, it looks like a totally different rig than it did when it came in here. The cut groove stuff is a pain in the butt to install, but it's very rewarding because it looks so cool once it's installed. Definitely a whole lot better than the smooth turf, but it did take a little bit while. I threw this extra piece on the front. He told me he wanted to have a piece up here so he has somewhere to stand. This is a lot of room, and this is 11 inches of space across here, so he said he stands up here a lot fishing, and he wanted to have a piece up there, so I think it's pretty sick. Cup holders up inside of the recessed foot pedal tray. He's gonna bring his foot pedal with him. I might try to help him run that wire, I don't know, but turned out sick, man. I was thinking about taking this all the way over, but I didn't feel like taking that out and then having to fish the wire back in there. And there's some extra sheets of turf left that he can put some up there if he wants to. I think that's plenty big enough. That's a 4-foot piece across there. And you got plenty of room to stand. Looks really good though. It's a little bit harder doing around some of these tracker stock hatches. You see how they sit lower. The hinges were a little funky, a little harder to cut out, but everything turned out pretty good. As far as cut wise goes, didn't really have any issues with this turf. Just takes a little bit of time. You got to pre-cut each side, make sure you got nice straight corners. Big hatch that we added in there. A little unorthodox having it open that way, but I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be honest with you. Lots of room up inside of there. And we made this piece just like it was. It's got a cut right here, runs all the way around. It's got screws in it. That way you can take this thing out if he needs to access his gas tank. It's kind of funky the way Tracker does that, but I guess they don't really have a better option. I mean, the only other thing they could do would be able to put like a big hatch in here. Might look a little better, but it is what it is. It's not that noticeable. Thing has a huge front deck and a huge back deck on it. It just looks a whole lot more like a bass boat now with this turf in here. And we did everything, all down on the floor, up around the sidewalls, everything. I'm hyped though, man. I did throw a couple of stickers up inside of the hatches, and I put one up here too. Bam! A little Trick 10 sticker. The console was cool, man. I'm gonna have to get out there on the water with this guy one day because I like this boat. I want to drive this thing and see how she handles. All right, so anybody that's wondering, we did order 8 sheets of turf. We still have a half of a piece left and another piece that's a little bit smaller than a half. So we used a good 7 sheets in this rig so far. The pieces that we have left are probably big enough where you can cut them up into strips and put them inside of these rod lockers and finish that off inside of there. So I'm gonna give him those. He also said he's gonna put his brackets on here for these rear seats because he might wanna move them around now that everything's turf. We're gonna let him do that. The rig is sick though, man. I really dig this thing. It's right up my alley. The center console, 20-foot, 150 horsepower outboard pods. It's aluminum. Yeah, I'm gonna have to get me one of these bad boys one day. Hell, maybe we can build one. Anyways, guys, I appreciate y'all hanging out with me today. Hit that like, subscribe button, leave a comment. I'll see you guys on the next one. Let's get back to work.